I'm at 2324 Fairhill Lane in Dayton, Ohio, doing a sanitary lateral inspection for the purchase of a home. We're looking for any structural issues, root intrusion, anything that may be of concern to the buyer. The access point is an outside clean out here in the front. There's a cap for it here. You can see that is the right side of the house. And then if you look back the other direction, you'll see that is the front door right there. And obviously the window is right above me. So this is cast iron. The only thing about this clean out is that we won't be able to inspect the interior piping due to the lack of access. If you look down, as we go down, you'll see how the line forces me to go one direction, and so it's forcing me to go downstream or out towards the street. And so this is fairly common with the cast iron lines like this, but and so sometimes when you first get into these, they bunch up all over the camera. But I just want to mention too, with cast iron on the interior, cast iron is something that you can't really judge as far as life expectancy or the lifespan that's left in it, just due to the nature of it. It does rust. Most of the time, for that, we would be looking for active holes and stuff like that without being able to inspect the inside. It will be flow tested to make sure that it is functioning through all the fixtures for a good deal of time, and that's already been done. And then once it gets out of the house, normally for a house this age, it switches over to clay tile or vitrified clay, and that will continue on out to the street. Another warning for the cast iron side of it is that I'm going to pull back out and wipe the camera off a little bit, see if that helps. Another note for the cast iron is also that it's a little more susceptible to soft clogs, or clogs from heavy toilet paper or wet wipes. That's one thing, you don't want to use any wet wipes in general, but it's much worse with cast iron. Just because it does, it rusts, so it gets kind of rough, and then it can very easily catch that. And wet wipes do not deteriorate like toilet paper does, and so it can cause some backups. You can usually get the clogs out relatively easily, but it's not something that you want to obviously deal with. I'm going to actually pause the video for a minute. I'm going to have to go in and run some water to rinse off the camera head, because every time I go to make the turn at the base of the clean out, it's hitting the bottom of the pipe and getting stuff right on the lens. So, well, maybe it won't pause. Okay, I did run some water. But due to the fact that... Okay, well, pause for a short second, and we do have the water running. There we go. Alright, and so there we go. It does have clay. Almost as soon as you exit which is what we're looking for here. Okay, so, yep, it actually is clay at the base of this. So as soon as you can see there's a little bit of cast iron, and it's immediately clay at the base of the clean out. So clay is a good material. It's been around in sewer lines for 100 years plus. The biggest thing we usually see is just a little root intrusion due to all the connections. Looks like we have something coming in to the right there. Maybe just a little bit of roots from these bushes. I'm not really sure. It's a really short piece. If you notice, there's a joint here and then an immediate joint here. So I'm not sure if that is getting in because that is a connection. Maybe for a downspout or something. It seems kind of odd based off of the layout of this house that they would do that. But that is usually when you find something that short, that's a fitting with a tap or something on it. It's coming into the side of that lateral, but I don't see anything, and that looks to me like that is just a little tiny bit of roots there. But it was really hard to identify what that was. So we'll take another look at it on the way back. But yes, clay is a very good material. It doesn't deteriorate the same way that something like cast iron does, but this is normally what we find. Just some root intrusion getting in. This is minor. You can see it growing along the bottom of the pipe, and so right now that's not causing an issue. But you can see how it starts at the joint, and that usually is a good indication that you just have, just from age, the packing around the connection, and you get really little tiny roots that get in there, and they just kind of grow on down. They get, they are getting water and fertilizer all in one place, and so it's not causing an active backup now, but those can grow larger, and so I would recommend at this point a chemical treatment should take care of this. Here's a little more. I'm not really sure where the roots are coming from as far as the tree is concerned. I'll have to look around to see if it's a neighbor's tree, because I didn't see one in the front yard anywhere, unless there was one that was recently taken down. Good news is structurally that's not an issue. Regular maintenance is usually required on old sewers, and in this case it would be something that you would be able to hopefully take care of with like a yearly root X treatment, or which is a chemical that you can buy online. It foams up. Put it in after at night before you go to bed. Most of the time it foams up, and then as it carries down the pipe, it catches on the roots and burns it back.
About to overflow. Oh, sorry. I switched sinks. It was about to overflow.
Sorry about that. But a yearly treatment of root X usually is enough. Like I said, it foams up and it catches on the roots on the way down, and it burns back the roots to keep them from growing without killing the tree. It's usually called for. There are directions on the bottle, obviously, and I think they call for roughly one treatment a year. But we've made it all the way to the main. As you can see, this is the larger pipe out in the street. And so the line looks wonderful, actually. You just had a couple spots of roots, maybe 3, but structurally the line looked great. So we'll continue to take a look on the way back and kind of make note of what we saw on the way out. footages and but yeah, the main thing that is it's pretty common to find roots in old clay lines at this point. A lot of times they also planted trees right on top of the line, which is always kind of funny. As you can see, the connections, I mean, all the connections look good. It's just, sometimes the packing they used kind of shrinks over time as it gets old, and all it needs is a little bit of a spot to get in, and then you get roots in there. So the worst one is here at about 28 to 29 feet. I'd say about 28 feet. And the connection is still made. It just, they squeeze in those little tiny areas, and then they kind of fan out. You want to make sure that they're taken care of before they can grow real big and thick and possibly do any structural damage to the pipe. But as long as you keep them at bay with some either chemical treatment, or just, you can have it cleaned. If it's done well, you can have this thing cleaned every 3 to 5 years. But chemical treatments usually work well to make sure as a preventative option. And so 19. So about 28 feet and 19 feet are about the only two spots with a little bit of root intrusion. And they're not causing an active issue, but it may be a good thing to go ahead and do a chemical treatment right after you move in, just to kind of keep it at bay. And then a lot of times I recommend a reinspection in 3 or 4 years, just to check to see the growth rate of the roots, so that way you could tell if they're still growing, because like I said, I don't see any major trees close to the sewer line, so they're either coming a long way or it's from an old sewer line. But having another inspection done in a few years could be a good option, just to check to see the growth rate of the roots, to see if you even need to continue the maintenance schedule, or increase it, or lengthen the intervals, because in a lot of cases, if there's no active tree, sometimes the roots can continue to grow for a few years, and then once they quit growing, it kind of obviously you don't have to do the maintenance to keep the roots out. But the line looked great structurally. I mean, and it was open and flowing. It just needs a little bit of root killer, and a follow-up inspection in a few years to make sure that you have a good maintenance schedule set. Other than that, the line was great. So that'll end the inspection at 2324 Fairhill Lane.